Hi there, this is Ajit here. This video is the extension of my earlier video on Agile Estimation using reference story. In that video, I talked about how to use a reference story to estimate rest of the stories in the product backlog. I also explained the story point estimation technique at a high level with some real life examples. In this session, I'm going to talk about some of the crucial aspects of story point estimation which should never be missed. Why? Because they directly affect the team's efficiency and effectiveness and therefore its performance. The first aspect is to ensure that the team is involved in course correction beyond their skill sets. At the end of the story point estimation, the team gets a story point or a number which represents the end-to-end estimate of the story. That is, it covers up the development efforts, the analysis efforts, and the testing efforts. And for that to happen, not only team estimates for their work, but they go beyond their skill set to understand why the other team members are estimating it differently and what are the areas where they need the help. For example, a story has been estimated as 5 story point by the developer. The BA has estimated at 3 story point and the tester has estimated at 3 story point. Now both BA and tester ask the developer, why do you think you need 5 story point? The developer says that I think the BA need to do some analysis in the story to cover up some of the scenarios which are missing. The BA realizes the same and both of them agree at 5 story point. Now the tester who has been listening this conversation asks, what is in it for me? The BA explains to him, since there are some new scenarios which may come up, you also need to increase the testing scope for that. So the tester is also convinced to have the 5 story point for the story. Now essentially what happened here is that the developer is getting into the details of what BA is trying to achieve and helping him the estimate. At the same time, BA is also helping the tester beyond his skill set to let him understand that there is an additional testing scope for him. So this kind of conversation results in some benefits. These benefits are, they are able to collaborate, they provide valuable input to arrive on the precise story point estimation which are required by the team, and on top of that they're getting a chance to learn from co-workers. What do they do and how do they think? The second aspect is blueprint of solution approaches. During the story point estimation, team comes up with the questions like, how about, but I think. These kind of questions and answers tend to make the team relate with the upcoming work, and in that they try to come up with some solution approaches to defend their estimates. For example, there is a story which would need a creation of a web page with some tables. This table will be uploaded with some data from different sources. Now the developer says, how about estimating at 8 story point, because I think it would need the development of 7 APIs. The other developer says, but I think only 5 story point is enough because we can optimize the code in certain way and reuse some of the existing code to just develop 4 APIs instead of 7 APIs. This developer is convinced with the argument of that developer and both of them agrees at the 5 story point. Now in another scenario, a tester is estimating the story at 8 story points. The rest of the team is estimating at 13 story points. The team tells him that, see, your test environment is dependent on a third-party vendor and we have seen it quite often going down. So why don't you make a provision to mock the services in case the environment is down, and therefore keep some buffer and estimate this story at a 13 story point instead. The tester is convinced with the argument put by the team and all of them agrees with the 13 story point. So essentially what is happening here is, with these kind of questions and conversation, the team is getting benefited in a way where they are able to come up with alternate solution approaches upfront to decide and focus on the first approach to continue within the sprint. The third aspect of story point estimation is the opportunity to validate the story upfront. During the story point estimation, team might have some stories which they estimate at very high end, say 21 story points or 32 story points in the Fibonacci series. That's where they realize that these stories won't fit into the 2 weeks of sprint. In that case, they need to slice the stories into multiple stories to fit into the sprint. In other instance, team attempts to estimate a story, but then they figure out that not enough details are available for that story. For example, the story need to interface with an adjacent system, but that system is a black box. Nothing is known about it. In that case, team can request for a KT session to be able to estimate the story. The benefit of validating the story as part of story point estimation is that team is able to identify the items which should be sprint ready. They can identify these items, get these actions before they kick off the sprint planning meeting. The fourth aspect of story point estimation is the improved estimating ability of the team. During the story point estimation, you might see 1 or 2 individuals who are estimating the stories randomly, and they are coming up with outliers. For example, one of the person in the team is estimating the story at 13 story point, whereas rest of the team is estimating it within the range of 2 to 5. In another example, the person may be estimating the story at say 2 story point, but the rest of the team is estimating it in the range of 5 to 13. So these kind of individuals would emerge during the story point estimation for whatever the reason. The reason could be that they are not able to understand the estimation technique, or they are not at par with the rest of the team because of their knowledge and skill gaps, or they are poor performers. Scrum Masters or Agile coaches can identify such individuals during the story point estimation itself and try to come up with a training and coaching plans for them. The fifth aspect of story point estimation is reinforce the Scrum values. Scrum values tell you how to act and behave part of the Scrum team. They should be lived throughout the sprint journey. There is a separate video which I recorded on Scrum values with some specific examples. You can refer that for details. Story point estimation provides a special opportunity to reinforce the Scrum values. I'll explain how. Team focus is to estimate the story. Openness. They express openly on their story points they want to put forward. For example, one will say 3 story point, other will say 5 story point, the other person will say 8 story point. Courage. Team shows enough courage to challenge each other to defend their story points. Respect. Team listens and considers others' viewpoint to adjust the story points. Commitment. Team will have round of discussions to invest good amount of efforts and energy into it because they are committed to arrive on a story point for the story. So these are the 5 aspects which should never be missed during the story point estimation, and cautiously exercise to make the best use of it to increase the team's efficiency and effectiveness. Hope you like this session. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know your comments or feedback. Stay tuned.